Hello everybody, I am Torit Mato and you are watching Art in Purulia. This is the third video of the painting with acrylic series. In this part, we'll talk of forms or rather how to create illusion of volume. But before that, I'll just touch upon some basic tips on acrylic paints and how acrylic paint can be applied effectively. Here are the tips. Acrylic dries quite fast, so we need to work fast. The working time with acrylics is uncomfortably low, especially if you are used to oils. Till now, in this series, we have been using only water to dilute the paints. In the next video, I'll introduce some mediums that enhances the drying time and also has some other benefits in comparison to water. A related tip is do not take out too much paint on the palette at one go. Take out only those colors and that much quantity only that you are likely to use in one sitting, because all those extra paint on your palette are going to dry and will be of no use. The paint is generally mixed on the palette itself before applying, except when you want the paint to be mixed on the canvas deliberately to give a watercolorist effect or impasto. For large shapes, hold the brush behind and use your shoulder or elbow, and for smaller details, hold the brush close and use your fingers and wrists. For applying paint as a flat coverage over a larger area, use a large brush, that makes sense, rather than a small one, and preferably a flat brush. It will save time and also give an even finish. For an even finish, apply horizontally as well as vertically. That will leave no gaps in between. When the brush is dirty in between your painting, before you wash it properly and not being used, keep the bristles dipped in water. You can use a shallow tray for the purpose, which will avoid bending the bristles. If you put directly bottom down over a jar, the bristles will bend. You can use a mist sprayer to spray intermittently over the paints to keep them wet. Preferably, mix using a palette knife and apply using a brush, except of course for the knife paintings. Now let's see how to create illusion of forms or volume. In order to be able to depict volume of an object, it's important to observe how light is hitting the object, which in turn is creating highlights and shadows. For that, the first thing to see is the direction of the source of light, the angle at which the light is hitting the object, the kind of shadows being created, the color of the light, and also the effect of bottom surface or adjacent objects on the object. In case of a single light source, the light side of all the objects in the frame will be on the same side. In case of multiple light sources, there can be multiple shadows depending on the angle and brightness of them. When the source of light is almost on top, the shadow is short, and as the angle reduces, it gets longer. Now let's take the case of a sphere to observe how light affects the surface. The part closest to the light will be the brightest. The other side becomes the darkest. The transition starts as the surface stops getting the light because of the curvature. So, there will be a brightest spot, then medium spot, and low light before it goes into shadow side. The shadow on the surface of the sphere is the form shadow, and the shadow that is cast on the surface over which the sphere is resting is called cast shadow. The form shadow also will have the darkest part, which is called core shadow, and dark middle tones. Some light gets reflected from the surface below and creates a lighter shadow on the bottom side. It's more of a reflection. This is quite important to depict since this differentiates the body of the object from its cast shadow. The cast shadow is darkest near the object and gets lighter and gets blurry as it goes away. The shadows will be dependent on the light source direction, angle and brightness, the shape and light reflecting or absorbing capability of the object itself, and the objects and surfaces surrounding it, from where some part of the light may be reflected back. In case of multiple light sources, there will be multiple highlights and multiple cast shadows. In case the light is too diffused, there won't be any dark shadows or highlights either. It becomes easier to define volume in case of bright and single directional light, which is not so when the lighting is diffused. For practicing painting of lights and shadows, we'll use this image. This painting I'll do on a plastic hardboard I picked up from a hardware store. This kind of sheets are generally put on windows and all. I wanted to see whether this plastic board will serve well as a painting surface or not. So initially I had thought of painting something else, but now since I've discarded that idea, I'll paint it all over again with gesso and make it white and then do this painting. But I realized it's not a good option as a painting surface. If you just want a single shade or even multiple colors, but you don't need any blending, it may work out just fine. But the moment you want to blend, the layers become unstable and may even peel off. So the decision is canvas is a better option as painting surface, and any other smooth surface is not a good option. So let me try the same painting using a canvas board. Here you must have realized by now that we haven't touched any other color in the paintings which we did in the last video as well as in this video. We are just using white and black just so that we can understand the values in a much better way, and thereafter we can play with the colors. First we'll sketch out the outlines of the objects. Use the shoulder, elbow, wrist or fingers as required to draw the longer or shorter lines. We'll block the background thereafter. Then we'll block the highlights and shadow areas. The transition area can be done thereafter. Then we define the cast shadows. Remember, it is the darkest next to the object and it diffuses as it goes away. After the areas are blocked, we can define the shapes and the values. We can pay attention to each part of the highlight area as well as the shadow area. We'll also have to see in case there are shadows of the objects on each other also. We have to make sure there are no initial outlines visible. The outlines make a painting look really cartoonish and flat. So that's it. Let's bring an end to this video here. So till now we have seen the basic materials and brush strokes in the first video. Then we spoke of colors and also how to create volume in this part. In the next part we'll see how to create illusion of space in a painting. Stay healthy, stay safe, and please do share the videos with people who may be interested in similar topics. And of course, please do subscribe the channel. See you.